Hey, how's it going, guys? This is your boy Hazzed, and today I'm going to be discussing with you guys how buffed are we getting on the 7.1. Now, we've went over the patches, but I really wanted to do some in-game comparison to live to PTR. And honestly, guys, I'm pretty excited about the Obliterate buffs, but what I found out about the Howling Blast buffs, as I thought into it a little more, absolutely blew my mind, guys. So let's go ahead and talk about this. To understand what I did this comparison on, I did it on my 872 Frost DK, and of course I'll show you how I went about this. So first off, I started off with the Obliterate test, where I basically obliterated on a target dummy on the live 2 PTR servers, building up to 20 million damage apiece, not using anything else. Of course, letting procs come up and fall off. There can be a bit of RNG, but overall, after that amount of time, it would average out, and we would basically see, what's the high end out of the two, and of course, what's the average. And then I did the same thing for Howling Blast, both normal, proc on Obliterate, and of course crit. I even got a couple of crits out of those. Those were actually a pain to try and get an Obliterate crit with cooldowns up to see what the maximum gain was, since I realized kind of a little, I wouldn't say exploit, I would say taking advantage of an ability's current standing. Now, what I remembered on the beta way back when they changed Syndragos' Fury from dealing base damage to dealing scaled attack power damage, and in PvE it went from hitting from like 600-700k to over like 3 million, and it started one-shotting people in PvP, so they nerfed it down 70% because the attack power scaling was so OP. Of course, me being an orc and having a bunch of strength potions, as you can see, I decided to see the difference in the Howling Blast damage, stacking those, and guys, it was absolutely enormous. So that's how I went about these comparisons, finding out these numbers, and going about finding the averages and how much we're actually gaining from these abilities. So let's go ahead and jump into specifics, and I'll go ahead and put the notes on the screen so you guys can see them yourself. Here are the notes I kind of wrote down while comparing the two, and I'll go ahead and kind of read through them so you can understand exactly what you're looking at. At the top, we got PTR main hand crit. We got maximum at 223, we got average at 205, and we got minimum at 182. Now, we got just below that offhand crit. Of course, it's going to be max 160k, average 144k, and minimum 122k. This is actually quite a bit harder than we are receiving on live, as you'll notice as I read through these next ones, because these are live Obliterate spammage going on here. Main hand crits for max are 190k, average is 170k, minimum's 145k, and we go down to the offhand live crits, maximum 131k, average is 118k, and minimum is 107k. As we see the bottom down here at the base, these are the difference between, yeah, I was gonna use a different word there. Totally didn't work out, but that's cool. I ain't even fretting. Anyways, down here at the bottom, these are going to be the difference between them. On average, we are looking at a 64k max buff. Minimum buff, we are looking at about a 52k average on Obliterate, and average offhand buff seems to be roughly around 61k. So we are looking at quite a bit of damage going on, just based on Obliterate alone going into the buff into the next 7.1 patch, of course. Really looking good for us Frost DKs there. But this wasn't the thing that actually threw me off. The next part is really what kind of blows my mind with this buff. And, well, let's get into this next part. Here we got the next section of notes. Starting off at the top, you can look and see I got Howling Blast live, proc live. Looks like hit average is 110k on average proc, crits 221k. Alright, so CD Howling Blast on live is 338k, non-crits 200k. These are on procs. Now, that's actually not that bad for Howling Blast, I'd have to say, but it's nothing compared to what we're seeing on the PTR, of course, which I believe it should be hitting pretty hard, but what it does hit when scaled under the way I told you with attack power is pretty crazy. I can't wait to actually use that in BGs. I tried to get some BG footage, but like the queue times for PvP on the PTR at the moment were just like 2 hours plus, and you still didn't get in a BG. It was pretty nuts. But anyways, let's go ahead and go down this list a little bit more. Howling Blast for the PTR is 173k. That's a 64k difference than what we were getting on the live servers. And crit is 347k, which is 126k difference than what it is on the live servers because they buffed it by percentage attack power compared to just buffing it by base percentage like they did Obliterate, which seemed like it was going to be a lot more, but by the way they buffed it actually made a bigger difference on Howling Blast. Now here comes the crazy part. Here comes CD PTR Howling Blast. A non-crit is 318k. Howling Blast is basically hitting just as hard as almost Frost Strike and Obliterate at this point when it comes to single target. And here comes the craziest part. It hits harder than both of them when it's a crit on a proc. It hits for 636k damage. What? You know how insane that's gonna be in Battlegrounds or RBGs? How just 636k Howling Blast on somebody? I mean, it's hard to get that proc, but just popping that off is gonna be absolutely nuts. You're gonna do millions of damage if there's multiple people standing there. It's literally gonna be a multi-million damage proc now. That just blows my mind, guys. If you could see my face, I'm sorry you can't. We had some camera problems today. I'm gonna try and fix it hopefully tonight. But it just, I don't even know what to say. It really blew my mind. And then we'll move on to some of the bottom stuff. Burst on live Obliterate. Let's see. Together, his main hand and offhand hit for about 389k. Now, PTR Obliterate Burst hit for 475k, giving us an average of about 86k buff on our Obliterate damage. Guys, these are going to be some huge buffs to Frost Decays coming up. And as we know, we are also receiving, hopefully fixing Razor Ice so we get that stack in PvP. Guys, this is going to be an all-around major buff for Frost. Like, we are going to be really strong after we receive these. I don't think we're going to have any problems with PvP and or DPS when these comes. And honestly, guys, I'm really looking forward to it. I think we're going to be really strong when it comes to raw damage. So, leave a like, guys. Until next time, this was your boy Hazzed.